Hello, and welcome to this week's Movie Math, where it's just so beautiful. Oh, so beautiful. Last weekend, I was nervous. Whew. Although a lot of you are like, I told you not to be nervous, Grace. But I had feared that Deadpool and Wolverine would have to contend with the huge announcement that Robert Downey Jr. is coming back to the MCU as a Tony Stark variant, a reimagining of Doctor Doom. A lot of you are still wrestling with that, although most people seem resigned to it. I'm curious, about a week later, well, actually, yes, 1 week later, what are your thoughts on that? I think we're like, whatever, man. Let's enjoy the MCU while it's amazing. And on that note, Deadpool and Wolverine was able to take that headline head on, falling an extremely solid 54% in its second weekend. Remember, as I said, anywhere in the 50s would be beautiful. And it is beautiful. I think in the 40s was too much to hope for, but as long as it's not even close to the 60s. So that's just great news. And I think that's not only thanks to Deadpool and Wolverine being a fabulous movie, but absolutely no competition at the box office. A total gimme by the rest of Hollywood. Because you know what I have to say, at the end of the day, Disney is truly that bitch. Love her or hate her, you just can't stop talking about her. I love it. And thanks to Inside Out 2, which just cracked the worldwide top 10 of all time, and Deadpool and Wolverine, the mouse has topped 3 billion worldwide for the year. And it's only August, baby. Oh, we've got many months to go and many Disney films to go as well. Whew, chugga chugga, baby. The Disney train continues to roll on. Oh, and what's this? Speaking of Disney excitement, what's this weekend? D23, you say? Oh my God, it's going to be incredible. I've already heard of just a few of the things that are going to be presented. Oh, you are not. Well, it's going to be good. It's going to, I don't want to overhype it, but it's very exciting. And let's just say they're not only going to blow Comic-Con out of the water, but every division is there to play. We're not just talking Marvel and Star Wars stuff. Everybody's going to have a good time. The entertainment presentation is Friday night. Everybody's presenting together. Movies and TV, every division, same panel. It's going to be a super mega presentation on Friday night starting at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I believe the panel or the presentation is about 2 hours. Oh, it's going to be so great. They're having it in it's like the Honda Civic Center. It's a huge arena. Okay. I don't know if you can stream it. I think you might. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you can stream it or not. Full coverage though. I'll be covering it. I've blocked out the whole weekend next weekend to cover D23. So Friday is all about entertainment. Then on Saturday night, same time, theme parks, baby. Oh, how are they gonna clap back at Epic Universe? I'm excited. And also now that they've cleared all the political and construction permit problems that they've had stateside in California and Orlando. Oh, I can't wait for this. And by the way, Josh D'Amaro, of course, is making a play for Bob Iger's job, so he's gonna want to look real good on Saturday night. And then, because he's like, I think it's him and 2 other people at this point. And then also there's a smaller Marvel animation presentation during the day on Saturday. So maybe they'll drop a little nugget for us as well. Oh boy, as I said, I've blacked out the whole weekend. That's a D23 Expo weekend for me, and I'll be covering it. It'll be a mix, I think, of live and taped to live. I'll be going, keep your schedule somewhat clear. I'll be going live multiple times throughout the weekend. All right, so make it rain, Mickey. And it seems that Bob Iger has made the Death Star operational again. All right, so let's talk Deadpool and Wolverine second weekend. The movie is already at $824.1 million in just 10 days and should definitely make the all-time list of fastest movies to $1 billion. Where will it land? Oh, it's close. It's close. I don't think it'll have $1 billion, I think, by next weekend. It's already the highest grossing R-rated film of all time domestic, and has made more money overall than any X-Men movie to date, including both of the first 2 Deadpool movies and Logan. Worldwide, it's behind just 2 other R-rated movies globally, Oppenheimer and Joker. Oh, and at this rate, it will surely pass both of them in a matter of weeks to become the highest-grossing R-rated film of all time, period, in every possible conceivable way. Couldn't have happened to a better movie. I'm a little nervous for Joker, too. Speaking of nervous, if I were Warner Brothers, I'd be like, maybe we shouldn't have made it a musical. It looks beautiful to me. It looks beautiful to me. All right. Although we're going to talk about it, but I think a different Warner Brothers movie might end up benefiting from Deadpool and Wolverine, and that's the surprisingly similar Beetlejuice 2. All right, so we've been wondering how Deadpool will fit into an MCU that is soon going to be once again RDJ-centric, but this time a villainous RDJ. So how's Deadpool going to work in that space? And I think the answer might be very simple and right before us. Because late last week, Ryan Reynolds and then Chris Hemsworth jumped in to tease that they both knew why Thor was crying. And fans responded, Deadpool and Thor? I mean, the movie just basically writes itself. Yes, please. Like, these team-up movies would just print money, and they allow Ryan Reynolds to continue to play in his own space with very gifted comedians. Hugh Jackman, always been a very jovial dude, but he deserves credit for being a legit, as I said, gifted comedian. He really sold a lot of the Deadpool and Wolverine gags. Very funny, very funny performer. People, for instance, were showing that fight, speaking of Honda, in the Honda vehicle in Deadpool and Wolverine, and just Hugh Jackman's like facial expressions before that fight was just about to break out are incredible and very funny, but he just plays it so well. And we know Chris Hemsworth is hilarious, and he's another thirst trap for Deadpool. I mean, it has a lot of the same DNA as the Deadpool and Wolverine team up, which is why it's so great. And it would give Thor his much-needed audience redemption. And you know what? Maybe, speaking of Thor, Love and Thunder, maybe they both take on Hercules, right? Get Brett Goldstein in here. He's hilarious as well. I mean, this could be really, really good. The only hiccup is that the Thor core, speaking of cores, there's a lot of cores in the Deadpool, there's the Deadpool core, of course, in Deadpool and Wolverine, but the Thor core is a major part of Secret War, so Chris Hemsworth might be booked in busy. But we'll see. What would you like to see happen going up next for these characters? I mean, Ryan Reynolds might want a little bit of a break, but if I were Kevin Feige and Bob Iger, I'd be like, how much to get you to work on Deadpool and Thor right now? I would definitely do that. All right, side note. I've seen some toxic trolls trying to say that Deadpool and Wolverine stars 2 heterosexual white men. But how close did you pay attention to this movie? Because I would argue that all the LGBT jokes and subtext, although most of it was not very subtle, in the film argue that global audiences are in fact just fine with LGBT characters, jokes and commentary, as long as they're organic and done in service of those characters in the story instead of virtue signaling. I think that checking boxes just, it undercuts and this is a disservice to the story and the characters. Whereas, here, this was just, I think, really strong representation, the kind that we've been wanting. For the LGBT community. And look at all this money it made. Look at the audience scores. I think this is potentially a very big deal. And if anyone's pitching LGBT characters or product, I think they should include Deadpool and Wolverine in their presentation. Meanwhile, we just learned that another studio, Paramount, once again blinked at the last minute and cut a key scene from A Quiet Place Day 1 that revealed that Joseph Quinn's character was LGBT. It's interesting. Based on the description of the scene, I do think that the way they were going with it would have taken the focus off of the main character, Lupita Nyong'o's character, and her journey, what she was going through. And it would have slowed down the story. So it's a fascinating snapshot because A Quiet Place Day 1 made all of Hollywood's mistakes that they've been making for a while now with LGBT characters, both the way the character was originally conceived and depicted within the story, and then the way they decided to remove the character at the last minute, instead of just simply letting the character be. I think that would have been the most effective and would have been a great win for the LGBT community. Like, I don't know what this is at the last minute. It's frustrating is the best way that I would describe it. So Ryan Reynolds proves how cutting edge and tuned in to current society that he really is. Also, I gotta say, behold once again the power of MCU beefcake. I told you, beefcake is where it is these days. Although I'd be curious to know why you think that beefcake sells so well at the multiplex and yet cheesecake does not. It's an interesting reversal. And even guys seem to enjoy, even straight guys seem to enjoy the beefcake because it unleashes a flurry of like men's health videos about like, what's your workout routine and what do you eat every day to look like that? It's like, it's the old saying, you either want to be with that person or be them, right? And it's just interesting to see, how that's very much focused around guys these days in Hollywood. All right, so as I said, Deadpool and Wolverine, in fact, what a movie. You could also have a gender discussion and a philosophical discussion about representation in society from Deadpool and Wolverine. All right, so as I said, Deadpool and Wolverine is also benefiting from a total lack of competition at the multiplex. It got to keep all of its premium screens for a second weekend. Twisters didn't get that. And this coming weekend, well, it will have to split its IMAX screens with Borderlands. I saw it on Friday. I'm not allowed to talk about it until Thursday, but I don't play the game, and yet I can't say anything. I'm under embargo. I guess what I can say is I think Borderlands might do pretty good. I'm not saying it's going to be amazing, but I think it might do pretty good. All right, at least solid. I think it might do solid. And it only loses all of its premium screens the weekend after for Alien Romulus, a Disney movie. But even then, because Deadpool and Wolverine is such a popular film, it'll keep a lot of big-sized regular screens. So you'll still have a good option to go and see it. No one's gonna, drop Deadpool and Wolverine down to the tiniest theater at the multiplex. So this is a movie that I think people will, it's insanely rewatchable based on all the clips. I mean, I'm surprised. What do you think about all the clips that they have for the movie on social media? 4K quality. I mean, it's amazing. I've been rewatching bits and pieces over the past week. I always stop when I see it in my timeline. Do you think that serves as marketing for the film, or do you think it eats away at some of the repeat viewing? But the movie is insanely rewatchable. And so I think I can see at least, maybe not casuals, but fans checking the movie out again and again and again for the rest of the month of August, particularly because of subscription services like AMC A-List. It doesn't cost you, the fan, anything extra, but it does add to the box office. I'm not quite sure how that works exactly, but it does. Like all of August, I think this movie's going to play. Because after Alien Romulus, we'll see how much damage Alien Romulus does. Although I have to say, it does look more and more CW the more I see the trailer. I think it might have, and we'll see how it does. I think it might have been a mistake to go all teenager, but I mean, maybe it was genius. Only the box office will tell us. But there are no really, really big movies until September 6th, Beetlejuice 2. And as I said, Warner Brothers surely is loving this Deadpool and Wolverine setup. I mean, it's just like they're playing us right through to the next one because it's another nostalgia comedy sequel film. Let's keep the party going. Don't you agree? I mean, when you think about it, both of them, especially because Deadpool is at the TVA this time, the way Beetlejuice is working at, the offices of the undead, going back and forth, some of the meta references. And Michael Keaton is revisiting a longtime role just as Hugh Jackman revisited Wolverine. I mean, it is, if I were Beetlejuice, I would cut a spot where he was like, I'm kind of Wolverine and Deadpool rolled into one. I mean, I would see if Michael Keaton would be willing to do it. But yeah, I think Beetlejuice 2 might really benefit from this lead-in. I know people who are extremely excited about it, which is making me more excited about it. Now, speaking of upcoming Warner Brothers movies, they're going to be at the Venice Film Festival in a major way later this very month. Not only premiering Beetlejuice 2, but also Joker 2 and Horizon 2. Sequelitis at the Venice Film Festival. Some of the films are in competition, some are just being shown. But not only will the first crop of reviews pop up, but also potentially spoilers. Why would they show Joker 2 so early? Well, the first one also premiered at Venice a month before it hit theaters, and that, there were still a lot of the surprises were still maintained. But now that there's a major female character, let's just admit it, audiences seem to go crazy, both positive and negative for movies these days with major aggressive female roles. And this one's played by Lady Gaga. So she's acting like a lightning rod for Joker 2. Again, we'll see if for good or bad, but I just hope that nobody spoils Joker 2 out of excitement or spite. So we're looking at everybody. Don't ruin Joker 2, man. All right, so yeah, 2 new movies did open this weekend, although, to be fair, both of their studios tried to hide them. Review embargoes lifted at the very last minute, and as you'd expect with such late embargoes, the reviews were not good. But because Trap's reviews dropped like late Thursday night, like after the movie hit theaters on Thursday night, not having the reviews pop up until the last minute and a really good trailer allowed the movie to do okay. It's no long legs, it's no smile, it didn't open north of 20 million. And I think that's probably not because of, I think that's the reason that happened is because M. Night's reputation with fans is very tarnished these days. And Trap isn't going to change anybody's mind, obviously, because these audience scores are weak. C+ as a cinema score on its own would be fine for a horror movie, although I also want to point out that back in the day, M. Night was able to get Bs for his films in the B range, sometimes even as low as a B-, but that's better than this grade. I saw Trap on Friday night. Josh Hartnett is great. I'm loving Josh Hartnett's return to movies. I think he's fabulous. I love his energy. And it's a clever setup for like the first half. But then the movie goes on for way too long. I'm like, M. Night, you've outdone yourself in a bad way with four different endings. My audience got so exhausted that they started shouting stuff at the screen by the end of the movie, which kind of made it not as good an experience. And maybe that's another reason I ended up not loving it. But my audience basically decided to revolt. Hartnett seems to be the only professional actor in the movie. And I would also like to say, who brings in Haley frickin' Mills? Who brings her back into the movies? I'm a big Haley Mills fan. And then hardly gives her any dialogue. I was like, Haley Mills is right there. Why are you not using her at all? This is bizarre. I mean, maybe M. Night feels most of his audience wouldn't know who she was, so he just was doing it for himself. But, I mean, get Haley Mills some new fans, man. Come on. And why aren't you a Haley Mills fan? She's a genius! All right. Plus, I know M. Night likes to shoot near his home in Philadelphia for convenience. But his films just seem to get less and less professional. I'm like, buddy, they're starting to look like home movies. At least Trap was had pretty broad appeal across the board. Everybody seemed to, not that many, but somebody from every group decided to give it a whirl. So maybe that means it'll do well for Warner Brothers on digital and then later on down the line on Max. I mean, again, it's solid. If you're sitting there again with your dinner getting cold, you can click on Trap. I mean, you might not make it to the end of the movie, but as I said, the first half's pretty good and you'll be able to eat your dinner with something to watch. As for Harold and the Purple Crayon, though, this couldn't get off the ground because Zachary Levi, who, by the way, fascinatingly, at one point seemed like he was going to model his career after Ryan Reynolds. Remember that, right? And I think Levi's career is clearly over, just as Reynolds, his career levels up like never before. Levi went full crazy as the DCEU imploded around him, insistent that he and Peter Safran were really good friends. He even had the receipts. But just because you're friends, Zach, doesn't mean you're forever friends, which you clearly are not. I think also posting your ski trip photo was maybe a bad idea. Because then why are you friends with Peter Safran? Because you really like him or for just the gigs? All right, what I find the most hilarious, though, is that kids under 12 only gave the movie an 87% positive and only a 60% definite recommend. Like, can you imagine asking a little kid? I used to interview kids outside the theater, being like, did you like this movie and would you recommend it to a friend? And they say no? Oh my goodness. Diversity demos were also weak, but the cinema score, I guess maybe that was a lot of adults filling that out. They seem to like it, so we might have a future babysitting movie here. And this is Sony, so that means that down the line after it hits digital, it'll go to Netflix, because Sony doesn't have its own streaming service. And that's great, because Netflix has so many subscribers. Here is a babysitting movie that will soon be on the service. I wouldn't be surprised if Harold and the Purple Crayon does quite well on Netflix. Netflix is very good at elevating movies that seemingly nobody had otherwise wanted to see, as you'll see later on in this video. All right, as for, because, when we get to the charts for Netflix, I'm not going to spoil it. Wait till you see what the movie is. You're never going to guess it. All right, as for the rest of the box office, as we expected, audiences circled back to Twisters after Deadpool and Wolverine mania subsided a bit, and the movie fell just 35% in its third weekend. They came back. That's great news for the movie. Although, hold on, because now I've got some bad news. So Despicable Me 4 first, also from Universal, and Inside Out 2 continue to hold up like the animation mofos that they are. 23 and 22% holds, respectively, in week 5 and 8. That's amazing! These two movies and Twisters and Deadpool and Wolverine could have played all the way through August. Although Universal blinked! Here comes the bad news. Well, maybe not. Despicable Me 4 is hitting digital this Tuesday. That's when I plan to watch it. I missed it in theaters. I had some personal stuff going on that weekend, so I didn't get to see it. So I'm very excited to finally watch it at home. And then Twisters is hitting digital the week after on August 13th. Why, Universal? Why? I mean, sometimes movies still continue to do okay in theaters once they hit digital, but certainly not as well as they would have otherwise. I mean, these movies, I wouldn't have put them, I would have just gone for theatrical and focused on theatrical for the rest of the month. I mean, maybe Universal will make a ton of money on digital. Maybe they're crazy like a fox. They have pioneered this whole theatrical digital hybrid situation. But I mean, it's great for Deadpool and Wolverine and Inside Out 2. They will stay probably theatrical. Well, Deadpool and Wolverine definitely will, but they'll stay theatrical exclusive for the rest of the month. Inside Out 2 has no digital release date set yet, but Transformers 1 hits September 20th. So I think probably around then it will go to digital. We'll see. I mean, it's amazing. As I said earlier in this video, it's now the 10th highest grossing film of all time. Deservedly so. I love you, anxiety. All right, so let's, for those of you sending me anxiety merch pics from when you're at Disney and stuff, I really appreciate it. It's very kind of you to think of me. All right, let's talk streaming, starting with Nielsen for the week of 4th of July, where apparently everyone streamed content for the holiday weekend because every single title, as you can see in the overall top 10, has over 1 billion minutes watched. That's never happened before, where everything was over 1 billion. That's incredible. And I think it's due to it being a very long holiday weekend. 4th of July fell on a Wednesday this year. Beverly Hills Cop Axel F dominated 2 billion minutes. Although one has to wonder what kind of box office the Eddie Murphy sequel would have done if Netflix had put it in theaters. It was okay. I mean, it wasn't great, but a lot of movies in theaters aren't great these days. Because that weekend, remember, it was all about Despicable Me 4 and Maxine hitting theaters, and then Inside Out 2 and A Quiet Place Day 1 were still relatively new. But I think it could have done solid numbers if it had hit the theaters for the holiday weekend. Like solid, not a huge hit. Like, I think it could have opened around 30. What do you think? What do you think Beverly Hills Cop 4 could have opened at if it had played in theaters? Netflix doesn't care though. They're like, they're a streaming business. They're all about subscribers. And they're doing quite well there. All right, so Suits is back in it for some reason. Why are people watching Suits again all of a sudden? Well, House of the Dragon fans wanted to make sure that I pointed out to you that they have finally edged out The Boys. Although, of course, obviously The Boys is still doing quite well in addition. But the House of the Dragon is ahead, and that's just with its max viewership numbers, not including those who still somehow watch it on HBO. I know a number of you said you watch it on HBO outside of the United States, although I think also a lot of HBO content is carried on third-party sites, which is how that leak happened for the final episode, it seems. But some of you still seem to watch HBO. I don't think it could boost the numbers that much. Or maybe it does, but they don't release numbers to that degree, so we don't know. And wow, even though everyone hates it, The Bear Season 3 is still doing fantastic numbers in its second week as a binge. On the originals chart, still no Acolyte. This was for the episode 6. That's what came out this week, 6 of 8. And again, the bottom numbers on this chart set a very low bar, and The Acolyte still has not been able to clear it. As for movies, Netflix continues to dominate here, not just with new movies, but somehow able to get you movies that you never otherwise have had any interest in. What's the one I was talking about? You can see it there. 2016's Warcraft. That movie came and went. Nobody cared. They couldn't even be bothered to make fun of it. But suddenly it's on Netflix and everybody wants to watch it. Craziness! And when it comes to holiday movies with the 4th of July, Independence Day still rules. They don't make a lot of 4th of July movies. You would think, considering how successful Independence Day is to this day. I mean, residuals are no joke. Somebody would try and make another they tried to make another Independence Day. It was crap. And I think isn't Roland Emmerich trying to make a third? Dude, let somebody else take a crack at that franchise. You know, forget your ego, man. Save the franchise. Roland Emmerich still would get paid. Wasn't he just talking smack at Comic-Con this past last weekend? What's going on with you, Roland? Although I did watch 2012 for some reason. It was like midnight, and I decided to click on it on Hulu for some dumb reason. You know how it goes. And I don't know, disaster movies hit different today, you know, when we find ourselves living through history. Over on Netflix's charts, it's clear that the Ghostbusters franchise, after just barely retaining its footing with Afterlife, which was a really good film, I wouldn't go that far, but it was a fun film. It seemed like it was a palate cleanser. That's how I would describe that film. But they're right back in the shit, right? Because look, because it's from Sony, it went to Netflix for streaming, and it couldn't unseat the new Harry Connick Jr. Straight to Netflix, like stale romance. I mean, and its first full week, but I mean, Ghostbusters should have been able to take that down. Of course, Ghostbusters made the same mistake that Star Wars did, trying to divide the audience's attention between the old and the new cast, but that just undercuts both casts. You gotta choose, and you clearly choose the older original cast while you still can. I mean, how anybody continues to make that mistake after what happened shockingly, sadly, and tragically with Star Wars, and unforgivably, is amazing to me. All right, then with shows, the final season of Cobra Kai, part 1, there's still another second half of the final season to go, but still very soft. It's still number 1, but still a very soft number 1 on an overall very soft chart. Well, Umbrella Academy, with its own final season, just 6 episodes dropping later this week, well, that re-energized this chart. Netflix, when a show hits for them, it really hits, right? And so the last one they had like that was Bridgerton season 3 too. So Bridgerton, Baby Reindeer. I don't think I've seen Umbrella Academy. I don't think it's going to be Umbrella Academy. I'm sure they have some other stuff coming up later this year, but obviously, of course, they just announced that Squid Game is coming back the day after Christmas this year. We'll see how that does. It's funny because, of course, now after The Acolyte and the way that character went, I wonder if that will affect Squid Game at all. And then also, of course, it's become clear as Mr. Beast has found himself in multiple controversies, but one that talks details about how contestants were treated on the qualifiers for his Amazon show, which an event that Mr. Beast's team ran itself. The descriptions of the show make it clear that it's going to be very similar to the Squid Game, which, of course, Mr. Beast did do a real-life version of. And so I think that Amazon is going to rush this out and have that come out before Squid Game 2. So, I mean, and let's not forget that Netflix put their own Squid Game out. So that's a lot. I mean, how much dilution is that? And is Squid Game such a strong IP? I mean, I hope that they have a strong enough, unique enough idea for season 2 that maybe they can cut through all this, make it potent again. But it's going to be really interesting, at least from a business perspective, to see what happens with that franchise. We'll see. What do you think? What do you think is going to happen? All right, then on iTunes, A Quiet Place Day 1, I have it abbreviated in my notes. AQPDO is a crazy abbreviation, man. Aquipto is the latest recent theatrical release to drop on digital and land at number 1, with lots of other recent releases continuing to do very well on this chart. They stay on the chart for a very long time. And they ebb and flow based on sometimes price points. Like The Fall Guy is on sale for $10 to own, and it fell back up to number 2 because of that. I got food poisoning watching that movie, and I not only not liked it, but I always still think about getting the food poisoning. All right, don't order the donut holes at AMC. All right, so just little grease balls. All right, so Horizon is still doing very well. Oh, exciting for those of us who like the movie. So that, along with part 2 about to premiere at Venice. Who'd have thunk it? Look at us, man. Look at us. Speaking of Paul Rudd. That means Warner Brothers, we were just talking about him for Ghostbusters, but that means Warner Brothers Discovery hasn't quit on this franchise just yet. Have you gotten on board the Horizon hype train? Come on, guys, get on. Toot toot. It's fun on here, and we need you guys to keep going. All right, so unfortunately, though, Maxine just isn't connecting with audiences anywhere, as it is not doing strong business on digital either, debuting at number 7. No number 1 digital debut for Maxine. I thought it was good, but I didn't watch the first 2 movies either. Apparently, it was a real letdown if you watch the other 2. And perhaps the Olympics has people watching 2006 gymnastics comedy Stick It, which somehow popped into the top 10, I guess not only because of the Olympics, but also it's on sale. As for this coming week, Borderlands, as I said, hits theaters on Friday, hoping to be the zany movie that kicks off August this year. Usually it would be the first weekend of August, but I don't think anybody wanted to get too close to Deadpool and Wolverine. Smart move. This might be just far enough away. That was a trend, a zany, wild curveball of a movie, wild card of a movie kicking off August. That was started by the first Guardians of the Galaxy. Many movies have tried to repeat that. Some have, some haven't. And obviously Borderlands has studied Guardians of the Galaxy quite closely. So we'll see how it does. How many people here play Borderlands? You know, like there seem to be so many game references in the movie, which I've never played. So I was just like, I think, you know, like anytime a character would say something that seemed very like a soundbite, I was like, that must be something the character says in the game. They had a lot of that. So does anybody here play Borderlands, and do you plan to go for that reason? If you're a Cate Blanchett fan, you should buy a ticket. All right, Blake Lively, who's been getting a lot of press with her small cameo in Deadpool and Wolverine, has her own movie, It Ends With Us, hitting theaters. Plus, we've got another horror movie, Cuckoo, that has a very strong cast. Hunter Schafer, I'll be interested to see if she's able to bring in an audience here, because this is a lead, so that'll be very important for her career. Dan Stevens, Jessica Henwick, and Gemma Chan are there to back her up. And that's a really strong, for a small horror movie, that's a good cast. On digital, as I said, Despicable Me 4 hits on Tuesday. And on stream, I'm going to watch it. Whoa, did anybody see that? I know I didn't do a watch along with you guys. Maybe we'll do a Despicable Me 4 watch along on Tuesday night. Because I feel bad that I'm not doing the House of the Dragon one, because I ended up getting the episode in advance. Press did. I think maybe we'll do that on Tuesday. All right, then on streaming, Apple TV has The Instigators on Friday. No, we're not going to do a watch along with that. And then Rob Lowe, I'm going to watch it though. And Rob Lowe takes you inside the mind of a dog with Netflix's documentary. How much, is it an adorableness overload? Rob Lowe and Netflix, they're like this these days. Then with shows, Dance Moms is back on Hulu with a reboot starting this Wednesday. While on Thursday, as I said, Netflix drops the final season of The Umbrella Academy, and Steph Curry gets his own show on Peacock, Mr. Throwback. While on Friday, Paramount Plus has the hand-drawn animated series Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles based off of the recent film. That looks, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I'd watch, I liked the movie. I don't know if I'd watch a series based on it, but I think like kid audiences might, and I think the animation looks very appealing. So we'll see how it does. And that's this week's movie math. What have you been watching? What do you plan to watch? And how far past $1 billion, it's definitely getting to $1 billion, but how far past $1 billion do you think Deadpool and Wolverine can get? Plus, do you think Borderlands can maybe wrestle the #1 spot away from Deadpool and Wolverine this coming weekend? I think that's very unlikely, but can it at least place a respectable #2? Because don't forget, it's going up against Twisters as well, which is now very strong still. So, Borderlands, it might be a little bit of a fight for #2 with Twisters. I mean, to be honest with you, because I want to see the movie business do well, the more hits, the better. I hope it can get a respectable #2 spot. All right, so share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.